Hello, mate.
Hello, sir. You're going to the headquarters of Gareth Jones on Speed to record the opening sketch of the show, yes?
Yeah, that's right, mate.
You're that racing driver chap, aren't you? Mike Webber.
It's Mark Webber.
Sorry, Mark Webber. Anyway, look, we'll have you there in no time, Mr. Webber. Oh dear, spoke a bit too soon. I'm afraid the alternator's died.
Oh, not again!
Hello and welcome to the new slimline Gareth Jones on Speed. I was just boasting how I've lost a little bit of weight through swimming and cycling. Richard, how have you lost weight?
I am on the dog plan diet.
Eating a dog?
No,
Yeah.
Simply buy a reasonably large dog that needs walking. And as I was just saying, before we turn the machine on, I've dropped jean size.
Cheeky!
Back to the jeans I used to be able to fit into when I was a student, I suppose.
Wow, well done. That's
I really have.
impressive.
But it means all the jeans I already own are falling off.
It's going to be the fashion again in a few years, so baggy jeans. So put them in the cupboard, they'll come back to you. As I've come back to my narrow black trousers, you see. Get top style. Zog, what's your secret to weight loss?
Worrying a lot and drinking too much coffee.
Yeah?
Works for me.
The coffee's good, the worry we can do without that.
Maybe, but
you're looking trim.
4 or 5 strong coffees a day, I reckon, is about the sweet spot.
You've been listening to Gareth Jones on Speed. Next week, we're supposed to talk about Formula One, aren't we? We're supposed to talk about cars. And really, I think you two will join me in a warm, slightly off-mic and quiet round of applause for the success of Sebastian Vettel winning his 4th World Championship again.
Yeah.
Well done.
Terrific.
I really applaud that. I think
absolutely.
he's done exceptionally well. Yes, we know he's got Adrian Newey's magic in his back pocket, but so's Mark Webber, and all he has is breakdowns.
Well, he's been spectacularly unlucky, but luck aside, and much as I'm a Webber fan, and boy, oh boy, am I looking forward to seeing him driving the Porsche at Le Mans next year. Much as I'm a Webber fan, Vettel is a better driver and he's done a better job and he thoroughly deserves this year's championship. Nobody else has put a car on track that can match him, even with guys like Alonso and Hamilton behind the wheel. So, yeah, he deserves it.
The Red Bull-Vettel pair is better at doing F1 than anyone else this year. So I can't really begrudge them that. And all the booing and things like that. It's sort of Steve Davis syndrome, isn't it? When someone wins something a lot, they immediately get tarred with the boring brush, unless they're Alex Hurricane Higgins in the snooker world, or I suppose James Hunt in F1. And there's no James Hunt in the modern world apart from maybe Kimi Räikkönen.
And I think there's something a little bit sort of weak-minded in. If we're fans of this sport that is supposed to represent technical excellence, in which everybody is striving to do so incredibly well, when they do it that well, to then turn around and go, oh, well, it's boring, I'm going to boo you. They're just doing it properly and better than anybody else.
Yeah, I know, it's weird, isn't it? What they're supposed to do, just deliberately be worse.
Yeah, and also, well done to Vettel for letting loose a bit when he'd actually won the race. And having a little celebration in the donuts. And what he said after the race about his feelings about driving the car and how privileged it was, he was saying very good things. He's a worthy champion.
Did you know that he stayed around to help them pack the garage afterwards?
Did he?
Really?
Yeah, he actually did that, which I'm really impressed. Yeah, he was there pulling down all the stuff. He's saying thank you to the team by doing it for real.
I know he does often stay late at the garage working, even if he's just sort of there keeping them company a bit rather than actually doing anything that he's supposed to be doing. But
Well, somebody in Formula One told me ages ago that this is often the mark of the blokes who do well and who really want it, because they don't go home. They're just there. And they told me specifically that Robert Kubica, in his day, was always there till late, poring over data, hassling the engineers. Why is this like this? Can you make this like this? Just complete drive and focus on the task in hand, where some drivers are like, right, well, that's it. I've got to go and open a Honda garage, and then I'm going to bed. And
you see, that's the Polish work ethic you get from Kubica. A bunch of guys doing the house over the road there. They are there, crack of dawn. They don't go home at 3 o'clock. They're there till like 6 o'clock. They really work at it. I think they're trying to prove themselves. They're wonderful Poles.
I just reminded me, so I was going to tell you about, I took my old Jeep to get it washed the other day, because there's this little hand car wash around the corner from my house. I don't have a hosepipe at home, and so I thought it's all a bit grubby, and so I treat the car to a wash. Well, all these Polish blokes come out, they swarm around it. The boss bloke comes around when they've finished. Is the bleep machine working?
It is now.
It is, yes.
Okay. He came round and I opened the door to pay him and stuff, and he went, "Oh, your car is the tree." And I went, "Tree? What tree?" And he went, "Is the tree. There is a
tree that hates your car.
What?
Because tree hates your car.
Because it was covered in
Sap,
tree
'cause he
sap.
parked it,
Yeah,
yeah.
Hates your car.
the bleep tree that hates my car. It was brilliant.
You like the Polish
Yes.
people? They're good.
Also, because when they speak English not very well, they're sort of quite passionate but quite aggressive as well. It's okay, all right. I won't park it up to the tree.
I'm surprised to hear that Kubica was there late at night working, because he just looks like one of those naturally gifted drivers, a bit like Kimi. Don't fuss me, I just get on with it. Schumacher was famous for being the last to leave.
He had the keys, though, isn't it? That was what it was?
Yeah, he insisted as part of his
He had a
contract,
really big
yeah.
chain on his belt and just a massive bunch of keys, that's why, but yeah.
Vettel's skills, I'm starting to understand what sort of driver Vettel is, and I think we are witnessing a new life form. I think we're witnessing the birth of a new type of F1 pilot these days. Schumacher was brilliantly strategic. Ross Brawn used to always say that he had spare mental capacity to discuss, hang on, if we pull into the pit lane for the final lap, that means we could cross it. You know, he's thinking, how am I going to win? How am I going to win? How am I going to win in that respect? Alan Prost had a similar sort of strategic mind, think about the greater things. But I think what Vettel does, he has a technical excellence. I was hearing about how he has to drive the car at the moment, where they've got this clever overrun thing, where if you blip the throttle as you approach the corner, not only do you get that through flow exhausting that blows over the rear wing or the rear...
This year's version of the blown diffuser.
Yeah, but you get a differential version, left and right, depending which cylinders, left and right, you can trick into doing this via the mapping. So now you can have extra traction on the wheel that needs it if you ride the throttle cleverly. And Vettel's learned how to do this. Webber does it, but not as consistently. Every single corner, when it's required to do that, Vettel does that. So you've got a man who is an extension of the team, the man who is driving the car in the way this car needs to be driven, and that's probably what makes him great. He's consistent and he doesn't make mistakes. Big fan, I have to say now. I've no grudge of him winning this at all.
Consistency, yeah. He's a very consistent driver. You can put in very consistent lap times. He does make mistakes, but he hasn't made as many recently
True.
as he used to. He's got better, and he was starting from a pretty
Do you know what? It just reminded me
high
of
point
something
anyway,
about... That's probably what separates world champions from people who are almost or not quite, is that application, that talent, of course, but also that always thinking about it. And it just reminded me of a story that I heard Martin Brundle telling on the telly a long time ago, I think, where he retired from a Grand Prix, and then... couple of laps later, while Brundle was still waiting to be picked up to take him out to the pit, Ayrton Senna retired. Same corner, I think. They both just, the cars conked out, I think. And then a motorbike arrived. There was only room to take one of them away. And Brundle was like, no, you go, Ayrton. And he said, no, go on, you first. And it wasn't just politeness, because their respective teammates were still out on the track racing each other. And as the motorbike went away, Brundle saw Senna going over to Brundle's car, inspecting the tyres, and then going back to his own car to radio to his pit to say, well, this is how the car is wearing its tyres relative to ours. And so give them a better picture of how the two remaining rivals on the track. And you think, there's a lot of drivers who've just been thinking, right start the Learjet, I want to be out of here.
Yeah.
And that is what makes world champions.
Respect to Vettel for doing it so comprehensively this year. You know, here we are with how many races? We've still got 25 races left this season.
Yeah, it's a big old calendar.
It's a long
Everyone forgot
season.
about that, didn't they?
Yeah, but he has managed to get in there and win it, much to the chagrin of some of the other drivers. Hamilton, Lewis, we call him Lewis, said that he thought Vettel was one of the all-time greats. I mean,
Did he?
Yeah, he said that today, yeah.
Was it definitely great?
Yeah, he didn't say git, did he? No, he didn't say... No, he did say...
Come on, Lewis knows he's enough of a champion, enough of a driver. You know, he can credit other people with achievements.
Without
You know,
undermining his own
do you know what I mean?
skills.
He's got,
Absolutely, and I think it's a very big thing to do, and hats off if he did, but I just think it's very un-racing driver-like.
Yes.
And I know this from my acquaintance with various sort of minor league and unheard-of racing drivers, but you could say to any of them, go, oh yeah, I was just watching Lewis Hamilton / Alain Prost / Fangio on the TV, and they'd go, oh, Fangio, yeah, raced against him in Japan.
Yeah.
Wipe the floor with him.
They all say that.
Incredibly unmagnanimous about everything.
Curiously, even Alonso said something recently about Vettel. He was genuinely complimentary, but you could just tell.
There's a but at the end of the sentence.
Yes.
Well,
It's
it's one of the few times.
She's a very good.
Exactly that. It's one of the few times I've read a tweet and it has to be read through gritted teeth.
Girl, I wonder what Mark Webber said about Vettel.
Yeah, that would-
his
he would
teeth
have
are
been
so gritted they have to have a dentist on call anytime. He's interviewed about Vettel.
It'll be ground away to nothing.
Anyway, so his pain will be over soon. He can go to his Porsche and he won't have.
No pain.
Yeah.
Actually, he may have some pain. He'll have to beat Neil Yarney.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
my money's on Mark.
I'm not so certain, you know. Well, there's no sign of a break-in, sir. Did you say this was your factory, Mr. Braun?
Well, sort of. It's really Mercedes' factory, and there's some quite complicated politics with Tato Wolff and Nicky. Let's not get into that now. I do work here, yes.
Right, but you don't have a set of keys to get in and turn off the alarm.
No. But I've found the key holder, and he's promised he's on his way. And here he is now.
Right, what is the problem here? It's 5 o'clock in the morning.
I'm sorry, Michael. Something seems to have triggered the alarm, you see.
Again? Ross, you need to get this looked at. Sorry, sir. This is your key holder?
Yes.
7 times Formula 1 world champion Michael Schumacher looks after the keys for your factory.
Yes. We keep looking for someone else, but you see, he's just so consistently reliable.
Also, to be honest, I quite enjoy it.
You do, don't you, Michael? Yes.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
I'm not normally the pedant of the three of us here, Zog. You're the king
I am
of
never
that.
knowingly out-pedanted.
And that's something we respect. We need that check, don't we? But it annoys me when people these days say that the electric's off. It's not.
Isn't that a really old-fashioned?
Yeah, got to pay the electric, you know.
Yeah.
No, you've got to pay for the electricity. The electricity's off. So we talk about electric cars. That's correct.
Yeah.
Right? If people start saying electricity cars, yes, I've got an electricity car, that's going to annoy me. Because, you know, yin and yang, if they're saying electric for electricity, they're going to start saying electricity for electric, aren't they? But I like the idea of Lecky cars. I think that'll do well in the northwest. What car you got? Got a Lecky car. Would you drive a Lecky car? You wouldn't say that, would you?
I'm clearly a southerner. I'm driving an electric car.
And you would never say Lecky.
I wouldn't get away with it.
You're
I
probably the
wouldn't
one
get away
most likely to say Lecky, Richard, aren't you? Being from the northwest.
From the north, I suppose, yeah. Is your thing about electricity like, I can't stand the way that people pluralise shops? I'm going down Tesco's.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just Tesco. That's the name of the company. Sainsbury's different. Possessive, that's that they've chosen
Yeah.
to name themselves.
Yeah.
Mr. Sainsbury's shop. I'm going to Sainsbury's with an apostrophe. That's fine. Are you going to Marx's?
Oh.
No, I'm just going to Marks and Spencer, which is the name of the shop. There's no S on the end.
Similarly, when people are talking about drivers, you hear, well, you know, your Robert Kubitzers and your
Yeah.
Sebastian Vettels of this one. How many are there?
No, what you say, but I'm going to defend that because
What?
because when you say you're Sebastian Vettel, people are speaking figuratively about drivers like Fernando Alonso.
So
and so
if you
they're
said-
saying, and so they're saying you're Fernando Alonso's, meaning you're very talented Latin drivers, maybe who look a little bit like Sacha
You're
Baron Cohen.
Sebastian Vettel's, you're 4-time world champion, so you're
How's
keeping
it
without
going?
Anne Prost and...
As a pedant, I would have thought you would have said, look, when you show me that there is, in fact, more than one Alonso or Vettel, then I'll be happy.
But there's clearly a bit metaphorical, figure of
Well, you
speech,
live and
rather
learn.
than being literal. But not everything we say is literal. Not everything we say has...
Although
has
almost everything that people
the-
say these days seems to have the word literally in front of it.
It literally does.
It literally,
Yeah.
shut up.
Basically,
Oh, no,
literally
basically
it
as well.
does.
No.
No, the new meaning of literally is
man,
unfortunately in the dictionary now, and
I
now
know, it's just idiotic, because it's still...
Is there no end to this madness?
It's just a superfluous word.
3 minutes into this, and I want to talk about electric cars.
Yes.
Because we all play this game. What car do I want this week? I'm going to sell my car. I'm going to buy a new car. I've been through an Alfa Brera. I've been through a Mini Clubman. I've been through a Ford street car. This is, you know...
Hey, what?
Oh, yeah. Not the street car, the sport car.
Okay.
An old Ford sport car. I nearly bought one yesterday.
Did you? a good little car, that.
£2,100. Had 46,000 miles on the clock. That'd be great.
It doesn't sound bad.
Yeah, but I keep coming back to, well, I really should have an electric car, because most of the journeys I do these days are down to Hoxton, Shoreditch, so modern, dropping my kids at things that they do there, or taking Violet to where she works down there, or going off myself. It's inner city driving. If I'm doing a longer journey, well, I've usually got a car on review, I go off on something leggy. So an electric car would really fit my purposes at the moment. And I know, Richard, you've got a theory on this as well. You think that right now, and it's probably a very narrow window, is a good time to have an electric car.
I think it is.
Explain why.
Because no one else has got them. And yet the infrastructure is very rapidly growing to permit them to be more usable. So there are charging points all over the place. Certainly in London now, and I know in the northeast in Newcastle, they've gone nuts for it because Nissan are up there.
Yep.
They're trying to sell Leafs, which are now made in the Nissan factory in Sunderland.
Not leaves.
Not Leafs, no, because it's pluralising and up and down, isn't it? Anyway, let's not get bogged down in Birmingham and Manchester and places, they're putting up electric charging points now. Some of these, many of them, give you free parking while you charge up, and the electricity itself is very cheap as well, I gather, on these schemes where you get the card and you swipe it. But better yet, and I realised this from arriving in the underground car park at the BBC to go into my office in Top Gear, and one of the chaps from Top Gear magazine had a Nissan Leaf on test, and he was plugging it in to just a plug socket that's in the car park. It was obviously installed there when it was built so that they could plug in a scrubbing machine or something.
Or
yeah.
leaf blower.
Yeah.
Leaf blower!
And it's just there.
Yeah.
Oh, my leaf's blown away.
I've seen leaf blowers in this country.
Yeah.
It's not just
I
American,
never understand leaf blowers because all you're doing is moving the leaves around.
Yeah,
you
I know,
don't have like
it's
a
pretty
dirt blower at home with
how light
it is
is
pretty
dust
How
everywhere.
light is this Nissan? You can move it by blowing on it?
No,
Blower.
leaves, not leafs.
Willful misunderstanding.
So bloke from
plug his
magazine
car
was
in?
plugging the leaf in because he was a bit low on juice, and he said, "There's a plug socket. I'm just going to see if I can plug it in." Sure enough, he did, because it was a plug socket there, and so he topped up that car with
regular
BBC
juice.
electricity.
And hang on a minute, I'm paying for that.
We're all paying for that. I dare BBC, my licence fee, I'm going about. But I thought it's things like that, and I think there are still free charging points and top-up points. A supermarket I go to seems to have one, and I never see it being used. And I thought, well, hang on a minute, if I had an electric car, go in there for half an hour, do my weekly shop, having my car charged up on my cut-price Waitrose electricity, which I'm sure is extremely good quality and probably organic. Then, also, because once everyone's got an electric car, the two spaces they've assigned, there's going to be a queue. But at the moment, happy times.
Yeah.
Zoggy's sceptical.
But, okay, well, I think you're making a good point, and I think it's likely that as more of us buy electric cars, as there are more of them on the roads, it's going to be harder to find the free top
Oh,
up.
it is. Well, this is exactly my point.
There's a lot of this free stuff around. But on the other hand, is now really the time to be buying one when arguably the technology of the cars is still developing?
I thought you might say that, because when I say now is the time to buy an electric car, I don't mean now is the time to buy an electric car.
What do you mean?
Now is
forgive
the
me for
time.
thinking that when you said now
Yes.
is the time to buy an electric car, it meant
This is
now
very,
is the time
very,
to buy
very
an electric car.
nuanced, very
I think,
nuanced what I said, and maybe you misunderstood.
Why does it sound like Seinfeld to me suddenly? Oh, forgive me for understanding.
Yada, yada, electric cars. Yeah. What I really meant was, now is the time to lease an electric car. Because I think electric cars, buying one would be foolish. The depreciation on the very few they seem to be selling is catastrophic. And just last week, a car supermarket was offering brand new Nissan Leafs for almost half price. Now that to me suggests something is badly wrong. A, people aren't buying them in the first place, even early adopters who are being incentivised with all this free electricity that's buzzing around the place. But secondly, when the few people who are buying them and then finding that they're becoming rapidly worth not a lot. So I wouldn't buy an electric car, because you're right, the technology is very much in its infancy and it is evolving very, very quickly, and it's going to become not obsolete but certainly undesirably old tech very quickly. But you can see with this new BMW i3 that I was banging on about in a show a few weeks ago, they're selling it for, I think, after the government grant, the basic one is 25 grand. But the lease deal on it is, I think it's like £2,000 down and £250 a month, which is sort of what you'd pay to have a Polo or something. That's a quite heavily subsidised deal, I believe, over, I think, 2 or 3 years. If you went for the 2-year deal, the car itself would still work in and of itself. And then at the end of your lease, well, if something else had come up, you know, you're essentially just paying glorified rental. If you're comfortable with that and you have the wherewithal to do it, which, let's be honest, people who are early adopting this stuff they probably have another car to depend on. This is a little bit of a trinket. This is replacing the G-Whiz, which they've put up with to show to their neighbours in Hampstead or Solihull or somewhere in the sort of the shishier parts of our bigger cities that they care. Now they can have a proper car. It's a BMW, but they're not going to land it with an unsaleable bit of old tech.
Well, and also there are some business users who actually would go for that. Possibly not if you're doing mega motorway miles, but estate agents and sort of businesses that are doing more local trips could well lease electric vehicles.
I think one of the reasons that the Leaf is not selling like hotcakes, there must be a better expression for electric cars than that, at the moment, is its normality. At the moment, the only people who you might expect to buy those sort of frontier technology cars are early adopters. If you are an early adopter, you want to make a statement.
You want people to know about it. Exactly.
Like, oh yeah, the BMW i3.
Well, exactly that
It
thing.
looks like the future, doesn't it? That's ridiculous, actually.
Well, there was an advert on the television. You see, that's the thing, I really like it. But funny enough, we saw the advert on the TV, and my wife went, "Oh my God, what's that?" And I went, "This is an electric car I was talking about. It's brilliant. Really interesting bit of technology." And she went, "It looks like a concept car." Went,
It looks
exactly,
like an
that's
odd
the
concept
genius
car.
of it. She went, "No, it's really weird looking and conspicuous." And it's like, well,
Yeah,
that's
that's
it.
right, yeah,
if you're an
yeah.
early adopter, you want to be noticed. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's good that people have a choice. If you're an early adopter, if you're going for cutting-edge technology, you want to be associated with that, then
Yeah.
BMW is your thing. If you want a really ordinary-looking car, then you've got that option as well with something like the Leaf. And if you want something that just looks really horrible, stupid and ridiculous, you can get yourself a G-Whiz. It's-
I think that's it. G-Whiz are dead now, aren't they? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't even. No one's
What,
going to
do
touch
it-
one of those.
Well, to be fair, I think
Do
the
it.
people who bought the G-Whiz may consider the Twizy. I think people bought the G-Whiz because they work in the West End or they work in the city. They had no option other than to go in there every day. And if you've got an electric car and you live in London,
You avoid the congestion charge.
you avoid
That's
this
a great- that's a
huge
great saving.
charge.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah.
commuting, it saves you a fortune. Plus, it was a very cheap car. It sounded like $5 or $6 grand. Not even that, I think. The
Well,
G-Whiz.
yes, but hang
Well,
on.
you say cheap car, it's a cheap piece of. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a, it's
I
not-
think
car is
I'm not
officially-
defending it. I'm just saying
officially
these are
it's
the
a-
reasons
and
people
I'm not.
chose it, yeah.
I'm just having a go at the
It's
G-Whiz.
a quadricycle.
It's a quadricycle, exactly, that's it.
Like the Twizy.
Yeah.
Twizy's a lot cooler. I'm starting to see them
Yeah.
around here now as well.
A friend of mine was saying that
Utilized.
there's lots of cities in Cannes and places in the
Yeah.
south of France absolutely packed with
Yeah.
them because
Yeah.
people there have gone, it's a pain in the backside to drive into the city centre.
Whereas a little thing
In a
like
normal
that,
car, yeah.
it always struck me that with the G-Whiz that there was something interesting in some people's relationship to it, in that I'm quite sure that some people bought it because it looked so horrible and ugly and unlike a car that actually
Yes, it
appealed
was an
to some of the
anti-statement.
anti-car.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah,
also,
that
it was a hair shirt, wasn't it?
Yes.
Look how uncomfortable I am.
Yeah.
Because I'm suffering for you people.
Yeah.
I'm like a sort of Jesus, but one that lives in Highgate.
I like the Zoe of all the electric cars at the moment.
Ah.
I think the Leaf looks too much like a bloody refrigerator. I think the i3 looks like it's been designed by two separate departments, one in Munich, the other in Stuttgart, and they didn't have a conversation about it. I like the i8, but I think the i3
Yeah,
looks silly.
very nice car.
But the Zoe is actually the cutest of all the little Renaults around at the moment.
I'd still get myself a
Pretty.
second-hand Tesla. I think I'd go.
Oh, now, do you know, funnily enough,
don't think you can
because
afford it.
I
Sure,
looked at
90
second-hand
grand.
Teslas, and there was only one available, and it was 100 grand because
There you
of
go.
delivery miles on it. So.
Crikey.
But there is a major flaw with the Zoe. You cannot plug it into a normal 3-pin plug, even in an emergency. It is not set up for that. It's the only electric car I'm aware of at the moment that doesn't have that facility. And that, for me, if you're trying to mooch off some free electricity in an underground car park, you can't.
Damn it.
What a massive and idiotic design flaw.
Does that mean if I can't buy a Zoe, I'm going to have to buy a Michaela? Are all electric cars named after children's presenters of the 90s?
Well, it is certainly, the design flaw is balls, so...
Hey!
Excuse me. Ahem. Young man, excuse me.
What?
When somebody comes into your shop, it's normally considered polite to remove the headphones to your mini-disc player.
Why what?
Now look, I was wondering what you'd give me for this Laserdisc machine.
Like nothing.
Nothing. I beg your pardon. This is cutting-edge technology.
No, it ain't.
Well, it was when I bought it.
Yeah, whatevs.
Well, how rude. Next you'll be telling me you have no interest in this Sega Dreamcast.
No.
Or this Game Boy.
I don't even know what that is.
Right, fine, that's it, we're leaving. Come on, Daphne, back to the Leaf.
Gareth Jones on speed.
I say, what's the difference between the MG3, the MG5 and the MG17?
Oh, it's a maths question, isn't it? I'm not
2
very good
and
at these.
12. I'm just.
Prime, no, they're not prime.
The
numbers.
MG17 comes with fried rice.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's a joke about MG not being a British brand anymore, but actually being a Chinese brand. It's a shame it was never called NG, wasn't it? Naylor garages used to make like the MG copies. Remember Naylor? They used to do that. I drove one of them. NG is such a Chinese thing. No wonder they're happy with MG. Oh yeah, we get that. That's close enough to what we have as a name. You've got an MG now, haven't you? Well,
I've not
today.
got one. I'm driving at the moment the MG3, which is the little Super Mini.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the
Swift-sized, yeah?
Yeah, it is. It's supposed to be a rival for all of those small cars, Fiesta, Polo, 208, whatever. It's actually, I think, a little bit smaller than the norm now, which is no bad thing in itself. Because as we discovered this evening, before you turned up, so Gareth and I went out and had a little look with Gareth's number one son and discovered there's loads of space in it. It's weirdly roomy in the back. I got in the back, which, often I'm driving a car around and there's no time to get in the back because it's moving. And
you're holding the steering wheel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a number of technical reasons why you can't do that. But we stopped, so I sat in the back. In that thing that is a great car journalist cliche, I was comfortably able to fit behind myself.
Yeah.
It just means you get in the back when you've got the seat set the way you'd have it to drive. And I was amazed to discover that Gareth and I sat in the back and went,
Oh, it's actually very good.
we can fit in the back. Enough headroom.
So you could fit 4 Richard Porters in that car.
You could,
Yeah.
yes. Though I
What if we
suppose...
cracked the whole cloning thing?
Yeah, but if it was involved in an accident, that would wipe out a substantial number of the Richard Porters in the world.
Yeah, so
Number
there
one
is a
son
downside.
was very interesting. I quite deliberately asked him when I said, Richard's got an MG outside. He was, oh yeah, can we look at it? Can we look at it? I said, what does MG mean to you? So this is a 13-year-old. He's the guy who could be buying these cars the next 5 to 10, 20 years if he can loan the money off his dad. I asked him, I said, what does MG mean to you? And he said, old. Richard said, what, an old man's car? No. They went away, didn't they? I would imagine that's probably a lot of people's awareness of MG. Anyone who really
It's
knows.
an old car brand rather than a current car
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah.
And yet, he has at least heard of them.
Yes.
Now, this sort of brings me to the reason I wanted to talk about this car. I mean, first of all, I think it's actually all right. It's a pretty good little car. It has a lot to like about it. It's very nice to drive, particularly to sort of chuck down a winding road. It's got a really good chassis on it, and the engine's a bit tight-chested. So we showed Honourable Number One Jones' son the actual car, and later on he conceded that it was the sort of car that maybe someone who just passed the driving test might buy. Because it looks reasonably sort of sporty. You can have stickers put all over it at the factory if you so choose.
Although it's not a terrific looking car to me. It's not.
It's not, but also it's not gopping. I think it's sort of got some neat details on it. Overall, it's a bit generic. It looks a bit like sort of last generation Hyundai or something. But it's not horrible. You don't look at it and go, oh. Ugh.
It's not horrible. No.
From the boot, it's a
and it's
Punto,
got some nice
isn't it?
details on it. The alloys on that one, particularly that I've got, are really expensive looking alloys with sort of this dark insert bit and a kind of shiny face, and then a kind of real chrome badge on it with a black background that's all textured, and you look at it and you go, that sort of looks like they've made some effort. It's not just got a sort of crudely painted on badge.
What size are the wheels?
16, I think.
Maybe it's just the side of the bodywork. It's got quite narrow glass.
Yeah.
It makes the wheels look smaller. I was looking at it and thinking, this is one of those cars that looks quite good on small wheels. There aren't many that do, but I actually think this does. I think they're the right size wheels for that size car, to be honest.
Hey, did you see that Range Rover Sport road test in Autocar a couple of weeks ago? And they tested, for some reason, a car on the smallest wheels you can have on that. And it looked great.
Oh, really?
Well, it sort of looked like it wasn't trying so hard anymore, because, of course, most Range Rovers and Range Rover Sports are spec'd on enormous wheels. You can have 22s on them from the factory.
Isn't it?
And we're sort of all used to that. And the designers like it because they're obsessed with sort of proportion, and the wheel is supposed to be half the height of the body and all this sort of stuff. But when you just stripped it back down and it sort of calmed it down, it's like it didn't look so sort of footballery and trying too hard.
Gauche.
And it just looked like a handsome, honest working car for someone who's got some kids and dogs and
Yeah, I mean,
stuff.
sometimes smaller wheels look better. I mean, just imagine your old 60s Mini, original Mini.
Yeah.
That wouldn't look better if you put huge wheels on
Well,
it.
they looked daft towards the end when they did start putting
Yes.
really big fat wheels
Actually,
on it. That
yeah,
stupid
right, yeah.
sport pack we've talked about on the show before that killed the top speed.
Big arches.
But, yeah, awful.
Talking about sporting little British cars, MG was supposed to be a sporting brand. Is this a sporting car? Is it an S? It's not an RS, is it?
Yeah, well, there's only one engine and one chassis tune, and then I think there's 4 trim levels, but they're all broadly just...
stylistic.
It's just equipment, really. So it is our car, which is probably one mistake. You know, you look at the Polo range or the Micra range, and there's lots of models and different engines, and they seem to be keeping it simple. I don't think that's bad in itself. The one engine's a 1.5, it's about 105 horsepower. Like I said, it's a bit tight-chested. It's not a terrific engine. The gear change is all right, and you can row it along perfectly well, but that's probably the weak spot of the car, considering the chassis is genuinely pretty good. And these other things we've mentioned, the dashboard is not exactly sort of fancy textures and finishes, but what's there is all actually quite well done. The MG6, which they've been woefully tarting about and has just sold about 7 cars, when you get in that, a lot of the buttons feel wobbly and badly done. And in the cheaper car, they're all crisp and neat and everything. There's no bit where you go, oh dear. Oh, well, yeah, that's the bit they forgot to finish. It's all very well done. Which brings me to the most amazing thing about this car, is that it's cheap.
How cheap?
I think it starts at like 8.3, and that one I've got outside, which is the top of the range one with all the gubbins on it. It's got digital aircon, it's got Bluetooth with audio streaming and DAB radio and parking sensors and leather seats, stuff like that. And it's under 10 grand.
Right, when you said 8.3, I thought you meant £8.30.
£8.30 that's very entry level, yes, but it actually has no seats.
Oh, yeah. In fact, no car.
All wheels.
At all.
It's an option to buy a car.
It's just a suggestion of a car.
When I saw this car, I think I understood why Richard likes it. It's got, and I mean this as a compliment, it's got a whiff of MG Montego about it. MG Maestro, MG Metro.
You see, I hadn't noticed that until you pointed it out to me, and now I'm worried that subconsciously I thought that.
The writing down the side, those stickers down the side.
Yeah, I don't really like those. I mean, I like them in isolation. I would never spec them if it was my car. They're just childish and idiotic. But I could see it's very clever they offer them because some people might like them. Sorry, I'm taking a while to get to my point. There are 2 points here. First of all, I think the car is cheap. It's not Dacia cheap, but it is cheaper than any Fiesta or any other of those small cars that I can think of. And that means it drops into a gap in the market that isn't occupied by anybody. It also makes it seem very good value. Since Proton and who's sort of selling 0 cars.
Oh,
and that's fair enough because they're ghastly. Yes, well, if we go right back, I don't know, Yugo are sort of probably more the Dacia and things. But anyway, they're slotting into this gap where they've made it quite cheap. And I think that one of the reasons I suspect they can make it cheap is because it's made in China. I've been trying to find out from MG how much of it is made in China. My suspicion is that the answer is pretty much all of it. And it arrives in a crate, and they just do the final trimming.
Basically flat pack assembly.
Well, you
job,
say I would like
here.
you can have different trims on the interior, sort of piano black on the middle bit, or red things around the vents, or silver things around the vents. These final choices you make at the dealer, they bung on at the factory in Longbridge. The stickers they put on, maybe even those nicer alloys they stick on it. Maybe it arrives on Steelies. I don't know. I'm still trying to find out. But fundamentally, the nuts and bolts assembly is, to a lesser or greater degree, done in China. And this is the whole reason I wanted to talk about this car, was I think this is the future. I think, unwittingly or not, MG have stumbled on the way this is going to keep going. Using the model that I was saying to you, Zog, earlier this evening, the model that is writ large on the back of every Apple product, it always says, designed in California, made in China. And as long as it says the first bit, people don't mind about the second bit because it helps keep, relatively, the costs, I suppose, under control.
And critically, Apple is very involved with its suppliers and therefore keeps an eye on them and makes sure that they're delivering the quality that Apple needs. And I think you're basically right. It's hard to argue with that proposition. And really, of course, the auto industry is just following the same path that so many other industries have followed in moving manufacturing to China. And it takes longer for the auto industry to do it because there's a lot more infrastructure, a much more complicated supply chain, so many other aspects to it compared to clothes, even complex electronics, toys, so many other things. But they're following the same path that a lot of other industries have trodden, and of course it's going to happen.
Well, because when people say, Chinese cars are coming, it'll be like the Japanese when they came and took over Europe or started to move into the market in the 1970s. And it won't. I'm convinced of it, it won't. Because nobody in the street can name a single Chinese car company. But they can name BMW. And if you say, where's your X5 made? They'll say, Germany. And it's not. They're made in the US. And the same applies to many other cars that we can think of. That as long as the core of the company is still based in the country where people think it's from, and the engineering is done there. Now, MG, people have heard of MG, even if they think it's an old car company, and the engineering centre, they have one in Birmingham. I think the heavy lifting is done out in China, where they have many more engineers, but the conceptualising and the defining how the cars should be engineered.
The lead on the design
and the styling is done in Birmingham.
Yeah.
So that's it. They can say it's a British engineered and styled car, and then it's made and just who cares?
Yeah, I think you've hit on it there. I also think that the gap that's been in MG's history actually works in its favour.
Yes, cleanse the palate.
Yeah, well...
Like Doctor Who, if I may make the analogy.
Yeah, very good. MG is the new Doctor Who. The truth is that I don't think a great deal of older car buyers, and I consider myself amongst them, being in my 50s now, probably wouldn't buy an MG because of that resentment that, well, it used to be British and it's not anymore, they're just trading it. I think there's an extremist to that. People won't do that. But a younger, my son's generation, when they come to buy cars, they kind of know about MG. It's familiar, like you say, it's a trusted brand, but they don't know the full history. As far as they're concerned, they're buying, one of those British cars that we have built in China now. And they probably see it, out of ignorance, the wrong way round. That's a British car made in China, as opposed to a Chinese car designed in Britain. And I think the former rather than the latter is what you're alluding to, and is the future of how people will buy cars.
It doesn't matter, but I'll just go, I've got this car with stickers on it that I like, and it costs £9,000 or whatever. And that's sort of the bottom line. In the same way any other consumer durable would be for younger people. Does it look reasonably cool, and was it affordable for them? Because young people don't have as much money as older people.
Extrapolate this idea, and where do we go? The next generation car will be a Triumph built in North Korea.
And I, for one, welcome our North Korean overlords.
You've been listening to Richard Porter.
Goodbye.
The Mighty Zog.
Goodbye.
And me, Gareth. See ya.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!